Good evening and welcome. If you haven't been here to HSP before, or if you have, welcome back. My name is Brianna. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator here at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, and I am delighted to welcome you to this evening's program, Black Music as History with Dyana Williams. If you are unfamiliar with HSP or are, HSP was founded in 1824 and proudly serves as Philadelphia's Library of American History. Our collection contains over 22, I think is a number now, million manuscripts that hold stories of all Americans with a particular emphasis on early American history, ethnic and minority groups, science and industry, the arts, and genealogical research. Our current exhibit, Voices of the Community, Local Black Preservation, is in commemoration of the Pennsylvania Abolition Society's 250th anniversary, whose papers are here at HSP. This exhibit explores the history, migration, and preservation of Black communities in Philadelphia and Lawnside, New Jersey, which was co-curated by Shamel Jordan of the Lawnside Historical Society, Faye Anderson, the director of All at Philly Jazz, and the local branches of ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. This exhibit brings together flyers, personal papers, and elements of the physical environment to highlight how Black individuals and communities have preserved their history through music, self-determination, and collective action. And with this exhibit, our hope is that it is a call to action to think about what preservation is and why it matters. And because of this work, we were able to secure the wonderful, wonderful Miss Dyana Williams to present our signature lecture tonight on the message in the music and Black music as history. Just a few housekeeping notes. This will be recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. It will be closed caption. We will have time for Q&As after Ms. Williams' talk, so please hold those in the room until after on the talk, and feel free, if you are online, to put that in the Q&A box, and we will get to those when we can. We are in webinar mode, so you can see us, but we can't see you. And please do, if you are online, tell us where you're from, where you're zooming in from, and we will have a reception after our talk. To mingle, view the exhibit, which will be on view until September 26th. With that, I am delighted to present Ms. Dyana Williams to give this talk to you all. Dyana has distinguished herself as the primary authority on the prominence and value of African American music and global culture. Ms. Williams has built a respected niche as a noted air personality and programmer whose 50 years in radio history has become one of the foremost, women entrepreneurs in contemporary entertainment and media. Her prodigious achievements have earned her numerous awards and honors that are almost too numerous to name. Among other distinctions, she holds the honor as the number 7 on the top 20 Black radio jockeys of all time. In 2014, Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter presented a proclamation to Ms. Williams for her dedication and effort to augment the Philadelphia slogan, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, acknowledging the inclusion of women in this title. In 2023, Williams, Kenny Gamble, and Ed Wright were recognized by the Philadelphia City Council and Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson for their work as co-founders of June Black Music Month in the city of Philadelphia. Williams is an integral part of the broadcast identities of New York, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, 3 of the largest radio markets in the country, for over 5 decades. Her talk tonight will explore Philadelphia's place as a Black music city, from Frank Johnson to Gamble and Huff. She will explore the impact of Philadelphia International Records' work and definition of Black history in music and the community, ending with her own legacy and contribution of Black music history as a co-founder of Black Music Month and founding board member of the National Museum of African American Music. It is my pleasure to bring Ms. Dyana Williams to the stage for you all to hear.
Peace and blessings. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to see you, that you braved the rain to come out tonight. I was making a joke and I was like, okay, so I did a blow dry, but you might see a conversion before it's all over. I was rushing to get out of the rain. I know you know. It is a distinct honor to be here. I want to acknowledge the Lenape people. This was their land. They were the caretakers of this land. And I think it's important as we talk about history in this place that holds so much history. I want to thank Justina Barrett for having me tonight, as well as Brianna. You just met Brianna Quaid. Thank you so much for the invitation. I was elated when I got the invitation because I am a music lover and I am a lover of history, her story. It means a great deal to me. And it is very important as the work that happens in this building, the research, the information, because we all know that knowledge is power. The more information you have as an individual, can't anybody take that away from you. So knowledge is power. So as Brianna said, I want to talk about Black music as history. We have so much of it in this city. We were the first capital of these United States. So a lot of things happened here, as we know, went down here. But America, 1964. The 36th president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, introduced the concept of the Great Society to address economic inequality, improve healthcare, education, and protect civil rights. On July 2nd, 1964, that very same year, Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act, prohibiting discrimination based on color, race, religion, sex. How did that work out? In Miami, a 22-year young, capable, charismatic, poetic Cassius Clay from Louisville, Kentucky, defeated Sonny Liston and was crowned the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Good and grown folks, we remember that, right? Yes. Okay. A month later, as a declared Muslim, Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali. And we know he became one of the best known people of the entire 20th century. However, due to his anti-war beliefs in Vietnam was going on and other views on racism and injustice in our country, sports reporters and others in the media became highly critical of Ali's religious and social beliefs. After being censored and suspended from the Nation of Islam by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, who was a very dear friend of Ali's, permanently left his affiliation and embarked on a transformative pilgrimage known as Hajj to Mecca, the holiest city in Islam. The civil rights movement was going on as well during the Vietnam War. And the civil rights movement, I was surprised when I was doing my research. It started in 1954, a year after I was born. I'm about to be 72, good and grown. Grateful, thank you God, thank you mommy, daddy, ancestors. But one of its most prominent leaders, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., became the youngest recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize. He was 35. Ebony magazine cost 50 cents, imagine. And the British boys, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, better known as the Beatles, soul music lovers that they were, they cited Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, and Little Willie John among their major influences. The result, after we saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show, was Beatlemania. And it spread all over the country, all over the world, actually. They became heartthrobs for many preteens, teens, and good and grown, myself included. Okay? And also in 1964, there were 2 months of major race wars here in Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, 2 gentlemen had met in an elevator in the Schubert Building on Broad Street, not far. These 2 aspiring musicians, Kenny Gamble, who grew up in South Philadelphia, and a singer-songwriter, pianist, composer, and studio musician from Camden, New Jersey, Leon A. Huff. They were preparing to launch a global musical assault with hits after hits after hits. Gamble and Huff were inspired by Berry Gordy's Motown Records in Detroit, where they created what was known as the sound of young America. They respected Gordy. In fact, Gamble and Huff, Gamble tells me his first airplane ride was to Detroit to go see Motown and meet Berry Gordy and their artists and staff. Gamble and Huff traveled there to explore also the possibility of working as producers and songwriters for the label. However, after observing Motown's operations, anybody been to Motown in Detroit? Okay, so you know, it is a small little house and it's amazing. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, what? All of this came out of that? Very small house. But after they observed what was going on at Motown in Detroit, Gamble and Huff realized that Michigan was too far to move and relocate, and they believed that they also could build something significant in Philadelphia. With a growing list of back-to-back chart toppers, Gamble and Huff became the in-demand go-to producer-songwriters for diverse singers. The Intruders, they did United, Cowboys to Girls, Together, some of my teenage childhood favorite songs. They wrote for Archie Bell and the Drells, I Just Can't Stop Dancing. How about the Soul Survivors, Expressway to Your Heart, which was their first big hit record. Dusty Springfield, A Brand New Me, which was then later recorded by Aretha Franklin and made a huge hit, bigger than Dusty Springfield's version. Wilson Pickett, Engine Number 9, Don't Let the Green Grass Fool You. Jerry Butler, Only the Strong Survive, another one of my favorites. Joe Simon, Drowning in a Sea of Love, Laura Nyro, and LaBelle. If you've never heard that album, may I encourage you to listen to it because it is amazing, and many other chart-topping songs. Through activism and art, creatives established new cultural institutions that emphasized Black pride and economic empowerment. Artists such as Leroy Jones, later known as Amiri Baraka, poets and educators like our beloved sister Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni, who made her transition not long ago, as well as Maya Angelou and others, played a pivotal role during this period. A vibrant cultural consciousness and awakening music erupted in the mid-60s. Sam Cooke, his iconic song, A Change Is Gonna Come. Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions, Keep On Pushing, We're Moving On Up. James Brown recorded a powerful mantra for Black folks. It was, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Sly Stone urged resistance in his song, Don't Call Me the N-word, Whitey. Okay, while Aretha Franklin proclaimed that we were young, gifted, and Black. Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne, they used their fame as movie stars to support Dr. King and the civil rights movement. Drummer Max Roach, jazz legend, and his wife, actress Abby Lincoln, also used their positions, their platforms to articulate the injustices going on in America. Prominent actors such as Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee were also among those who wholeheartedly embraced their Black identity. Black people wore natural hairstyles and African garb, acknowledging their connection to Africa. Gamble and Huff were acutely aware and informed by the events unfolding around them. Gamble, in particular, was a history buff and an avid reader. Growing up in his South Philadelphia neighborhood, he was exposed to Father Divine's interracial or international peace mission, and also later became very close friends with Mother Divine. Gamble was also influenced by Dr. Charles Albert Tindley and Tindley Temple, all of this in the very community that he lived in. And there was Bishop Sweet Daddy Grace, Bishop McCullough, and his band, in particular their rhythmic horn section, also had a profound influence on Gamble and Huff's music. Both Leon Huff's parents were musical. His father, Eugene, was a barber who played the guitar, while his mother, Beatrice, played the organ and piano for the 10th Street Baptist Church Choir in Camden, New Jersey. Leon absorbed all of this music. He took some formal lessons, and his mother, of course, taught him at home as well. These were crucial factors in the development of the ultra creative talents that was possessed by Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. Before the rise of Beyonce and Mariah Carey and other superstar artists, Philadelphia had the first American superstar. His name, Francis Frank Johnson, a prolific buglist, fiddler, and noted composer. He resided in Philadelphia, not far from where we are now, at 65 South 4th Street. I made a pilgrimage there recently and stood in front of the marker and the place where he resided, which is around the corner from Mother Bethel, which of course we know is one of the oldest Black churches in the entire country. But he was a huge celebrity, to the point where during the Revolutionary and antebellum eras, Johnson gained so much popularity with white and Black audiences. He also was the first Black man to publish sheet music in the country. He also, with his band, embarked on a journey to England in 1837 to celebrate Queen Victoria and toured extensively throughout the country. Gamble and Huff would follow in Johnson's footsteps with a valued song catalog currently administered by Warner Chappell Music that has over 3,500 songs. After Gamble and Huff formed several labels, including Neptune, Gamble, and Excel Records, and partnering together with Tom Bell, they created Mighty Three Assorted Music. Tom Bell was the third partner, so they call themselves Mighty Three. But Tommy recorded the Spinners, Johnny Mathis, the Stylistics, and other groups, but it was still all under the partnership with Gamble and Huff. They, the three of them, were experiencing incredible success. However, by 1971, Gamble and Huff established Philadelphia International Records, PIR, and they created what's known as TSOP, the Sound of Philadelphia. These accomplished producers, interestingly enough, Gamble tells me, he tells me so many stories, but he stood outside of 309 when it was Cameo Parkway Records. And a gentleman by the name of Nate McCullough, who was a promotion man, told Gamble when he asked one day, Gamble said, well, what goes on in the building? Because he couldn't get into the building, right? He had no business in the building, but he was an aspiring songwriter and artist. And he knew what went on in the building. It was Bobby Rydell, the Orlons, mashed potatoes, one of the most popular dances in the 60s. And then Dee Dee Sharp comes through with mashed potatoes. Well, Nate McCullough told Gamble, he said, it's a penny business, and where you're gonna make money is writing songs. Mind you, Gamble was a singer becoming a songwriter after he heard that the money was to be made from publishing. So there you go, he learned how to write songs. And they signed primarily artists who lived in Philadelphia. There were a few folks that came from Jersey, but most of the artists were Philadelphians from the hood, from the neighborhood. And I might add here, they also engaged the services of Joe Tarzia. Joe Tarzia was an engineer who recorded and worked at Cameo Parkway. But when that label folded, Gamble and Huff brought him in, and he became so integral to what we know as TSOP. He was a very creative engineer, and we hear his contribution all through. For instance, Ship Ahoy, in the 70s, you heard that he made a sound like a whip cracking. That was Joe Tarzia. He was a brilliant engineer. Despite lacking an MBA, Gamble and Huff possessed creative and financial acumen to build a multi-million-dollar record label and provide others an opportunity to make money and to share their talents. With a diverse interracial group of musicians known as MFSB, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, there was Don Ronaldo Strings, Lush Strings, and we hear and we're told that a lot of the string players were retired from the Philadelphia, world-class Philadelphia Orchestra, okay? Okay, right, very true. And, right, Danny? And we had great arrangers like Bobby Martin, saxophonist, flautist, Jack Faith, Jim Gallagher, Dexter Wanzel, songwriters, Carrie Hippie Gilbert, Linda Creed, Cynthia Biggs, Bruce Hawes, Joe Jefferson, Charlie Boy Simmons, Gene McFadden, John Whitehead, who I'll mention again a little later, and a roster of talented artists. Gamble and Huff crafted a formula that blended socially conscious lyrics, upbeat party jams, and heartfelt love songs. If you break down any Gamble and Huff album, you're gonna get, that's the formula. Some conscious lyric songs, get down and party, and then if you need to accentuate your love life, you can listen to a Gamble Huff song, okay? Through their Philadelphia International Records, they infused their music with infectious rhythms, memorable melodies, and lyrics that resonated with audiences worldwide. Gamble and Huff's influence extended far beyond their own music, catapulting artists like the Soul Survivors, the Intruders, the Stylistics, Patti LaBelle, the 3 Degrees, Lou Rawls, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, Billy Paul, Phyllis Hyman, MFSB, Gene Carn, Dexter Wanzel I mentioned earlier, Instant Funk, the Tramps, the Spinners, and of course, Dee Dee Sharp Gamble was then married to Kenny. The Ebonies, the Jones Girls, and how about the Jacksons? They left Motown. They were the Jackson Five. Most of us, many of us grew up with them. But they did not own the name, the Jackson Five. It was owned by Motown and Berry Gordy. And they could not take the name with them. And that's when they became the Jacksons. And they came to Philadelphia, and Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff produced 2 albums on them, The Jacksons, and the other one was called Going Places. And that was when I first met Michael Jackson. It was 1976 at this time. I was pregnant. Gamble and I were having our first child, Khalif, and Michael says to me, he was staying at the Latham, it was the Latham Hotel, and he said, "What does it feel like to have a person inside?" Good question, right? Legit question. He was curious. And he rubbed my belly, and at that point, my son's elbow or something was sticking out, and Michael felt my baby moving inside of my uterus, and it was a moment. And every time that I saw him, it was just love. He was a loving person. He loved people. He loved children, and not in the manner in which he had been accused of, and of course, found innocent, but you know, that's another story. Okay. In the process of building their empire, Gamble and Huff achieved musical success, but also helped to create generational wealth for the artist on their label and their families. Dick Clark, American Bandstand. Everybody remember American Bandstand, the good and grown in the audience? American Bandstand, a national dance and music television show, originated in West Philadelphia at what is now called the Enterprise Center, West Philadelphia. However, in 1964, that I was referring to earlier, he relocated his operations to Los Angeles. Then, a Chicago radio personality named Don Cornelius created, hosted, and produced a Black dance show called Soul Train. Now, in my opinion, I was looking at American Bandstand dancers last week, And then I looked at Soul Train dancers. Okay, in my opinion, Soul Train had much more flavor and vibrancy and entertaining atmosphere compared to American Bandstand, and it also became a very popular dance show, national. It started in Chicago, and then Don Cornelius worked overtime. But an interesting thing happened. Maybe a year or so after he was on the air, teamed up with Gamble and Huff, and you know what they did? They created the new theme song for Soul Train. And it was the one that when we heard it, we were running in the house. Whatever we did, we stopped. There was no DVRs, VCRs, there was none of that. There was no internet. It was live television, and you had to catch it when it was happening. Okay, but Gamble and Huff, that's right, with the 3 Degrees and MFSB, wrote the popular anthem for us on Saturdays when Soul Train aired nationally. The song helped to solidify Gamble and Huff's reputation as musical maestros. Their music provided listeners with a playbook on how to navigate loving and living. With the support of popular Philadelphia radio DJs, now I'm checking y'all to make sure you remember, those of you who grew up in Philly. Oh, quite a few of you. Okay, very good. So then I know you remember Lord Fauntleroy. Okay, you remember Jimmy Bishop. You remember Georgie Woods, the guy with the goods. You remember Joe Butterball Tamburo. You remember Louise Williams Bishop. Okay, very good. Because, and Jocko Henderson, exactly. These radio personalities elevated Gamble and Huff's music. In fact, another Gamble tells me he would go right to the radio station. They would press it, take it, and Georgie Woods would back that thing up maybe 3, 4 times. Okay? So you heard it, you loved it, and then you know what you did? You ran out to the record store to buy it. To Bruce Webb's, King James, those were the spots. You ran out to get your music, all right? There was a message in their music for sure. Songs like Wake Up Everybody, how about that? The Backstabbers, Message in Our Music. One of my favorites, Teddy Pendergrass, and I Miss You. If you've never heard this song, you will hear a man's vulnerability after he's lost his woman. That wasn't really happening a lot in music, especially in Black music, but here you had Kenny Gamble, who was the lyricist. He was the one who wrote the words. Huff would come up with the rhythms and the melodies Gamble as well. But my goodness, the music. PIR, also known as the Great Philadelphia Trading Company, became the label of the flavor of that time. In 1975, Black Enterprise magazine ranked PIR the Great Philadelphia Trading Company, number 6 on its BE Top 100 list, recognizing the remarkable success and revenue that year of $17 million. That was 1975. The success of Message in Our Music was a testament to the duo and the team that worked with them. December 16th, 1977 witnessed another significant musical event with the release of the film and soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever. Y'all remember that one? John Travolta, the Bee Gees. And on that album, Philly's Tramps, Disco Inferno. Disco is largely attributed to the group's founder and drummer, Earl Young, and Gamble and Huff's MFSB. Young was the principal drummer on most of Gamble and Huff's hits, with Young's signature 4-on-the-floor drum beat. This beat consists of 4 kick drums per measure, a snare on the 2nd and 4th beats, and an 8th note, hi-hat, on the hi-hat pattern. Ever committed to improving their neighborhoods and enhancing quality of life, Gamble and Huff produced Let's Clean Up the Ghetto all-star albums. This collaboration featured a diverse group of artists, some of whom I've mentioned already: Lou Rawls, Dee Dee Sharp, Teddy Pendergrass, the 3 Degrees, the OJs, Billy Paul, Archie Bell and the Drells, the Intruders, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. In the song, Billy Paul says, get your brooms, your mop, and your pails. We're going to wash it, polish, and make it all clean. He urged people to take action to clean up their communities, not just in Philadelphia, but everywhere. This was a message being sent out all over. The song was a call to action to purge and eliminate blight and trash. Gamble and Huff wrote classic songs for major occasions, but I will tell you the Clean Up the Ghetto effort was one of the first collaborative efforts on a Black-owned record label where they put a lot of their artists together, but again, back to a message in the music. And the Community Affairs Division of Philadelphia International consisted of Harold Preston, Elaine Johnson, and I'm very, very honored to have also Mr. Lawrence Johnson, who also was part of running Philadelphia International Records Community Affairs. He grew up with Kenny Gamble, best friends, and did incredible work to make that label a success. Thank you for your contribution, Lawrence Johnson. But Gamble wrote songs like, can't get through a Mother's Day and listen to the radio go anywhere without hearing The Intruders. I'll always love my mama, she's my favorite girl. You only get one, yeah. Okay. Also, the OJs. How about Thanksgiving? I can't get through my Thanksgiving without hearing Family Reunion. Got to have a family reunion. Okay. As far as scaling Philadelphia International's business, Leon Huff's discovery of Theodore Teddy Pendergrass, power-forward baritone voice, was a perfect match for Gamble and Huff's vision for the former drummer. They signed Teddy as a solo artist, so he exited as a Blue Note no more. Although people were getting, Harold was complaining. Harold was like, people think Teddy is me. It was a problem, okay? A big problem. They fought about it. But Gamble and Huff signed Teddy as a solo artist and produced 5 consecutive platinum albums in a row. Okay, now y'all, perspective. That's a lot of, we're talking about physical vinyl. We're not talking about this digital mess that's going on these days. We're talking about people going out and buying albums. 5 platinum albums in a row. Teddy was the first male and the first African-American man to have such a record, and at an independent record company. Teddy's for women only sold-out concerts were epic. And Gamble had a vision very early, and that was to create Teddy jeans. Teddy Pendergrass was one of the first celebrities of any persuasion. Teddy Pendergrass jeans. Anybody own? Mine, I can probably get my finger in mine. Okay, I have them still. They're in my closet. Teddy was poised for acting and Hollywood until March 18, 1982, when in an accident on the treacherous, may I say treacherous Lincoln Drive, Teddy was rendered, he was left a quadriplegic. It didn't stop him, though. I might add that Teddy lived over 25 years. Quads don't live that long, but he lived quite a bit. Teddy was my neighbor in Penn Valley and my best male friend until he transitioned. I had the honor of doing his obituary. His widow, Joan, asked me, and I helped organize his funeral services. And that was and still. But he's with me. I carry him with me wherever I go. While the nonprofit filings for the Black Music Association were done in 1975, again, this is another consequential thing that happened in Philadelphia with Kenny Gamble and Philadelphia International Records. Gamble came up with an idea after going to Nashville. Did you go on that trip, Lawrence? Did you go to Nashville with him? You did. They saw what was going on with the Country Music Association, the CMA. And the Country Music Association was galvanizing the country artists and industry to make Nashville the home of country music. Very smart marketing move, because that's when we think of Nashville, we think of country music. But we do not think of country music as created by Black people. Again, here's, okay, this is why preservation of her story, his story, is important. Black people were involved in the construction of country music, and it wasn't just Charlie Pride people. Just know that. But the Country Music Association was very smart, and they were marketing Nashville as the hub and the home, and they were promoting white country artists as the creators of the genre. Now, we have to keep in mind that Black people, white people have always lived, together, separate but together, okay? And especially in the South. And I'm gonna talk about that in a minute a little more. But Gamble established the Black Music Association in an effort to galvanize Black professionals in the music industry. And in September of 1978, when Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff hosted a summit meeting at La Costa Resort in California. Were you there as well, Lawrence? You were there too. Of course you were. In attendance were the most powerful Black owners of independent record labels. Berry Gordy, Motown, Detroit. Al Bell, Stax Records in Memphis. Clarence Avant, Sussex Records in Los Angeles. Dick Griffey, Solar Records, the sound of Los Angeles Records. Also in attendance was Stevie Wonder, who was a very good friend of Gamble's, and Reverend Jesse Jackson and Smokey Robinson. Their goal was to firmly establish the Black Music Association, the BMA, and to bring together the strength of Black labels, influential and popular artists, allied professionals, and engage in the might of consumers. The BMA had 4 divisions: radio, television, journalists, media, artist, marketing, merchandising, and record company executives and allied professionals. Gamble believed in the power of numbers and advocating for financial equality amongst Black members of the music industry. He envisioned better deals for album distribution, improved radio airplay, and much more favorable terms for artists with concert promoters. The slogan for the BMA was "Black music is green." It became a rallying cry for the organization. The BMA hosted music conferences featuring panels, performances by renowned artists like Bob Marley and Stevie Wonder and many others. And for a while, it held considerable influence in the music business. The Black Music Association, as developed by Kenny Gamble, Ed Wright, and myself, and others, went on for a period of time. Clarence Avant, who had connections with President Jimmy Carter's administration, petitioned the president to host a reception for the BMA. In June of 1979, President Carter and his wife, Rosalind, hosted on the South Lawn of the White House a picnic-style gathering with several hundred prominent music industry members. President Carter declared June as Black Music Month that day, and I was honored to have the opportunity to sit with the president and his wife, Rosalind, and their daughter, Amy, and my date, my man, Kenny Gamble, at the time. I was honored to, hey. I was a young girl too. I was so excited. My first time there, I think I went on a school trip when I went, when they take you on one of those school trips to the White House, but this was different. It was great, wasn't it, Lawrence? It was a beautiful day. He was there too. Okay, he was there for everything, honey. He was there. He was probably there when they signed. Were you there when they signed the Declaration of Independence? No, I'm joking. It's a bad joke. Bad joke. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was a glorious day on the South Lawn. As a young woman in love, I was excited. Barry Gordon, okay, you've seen all these incredible people. Barry White was there with his wife, Claudine. Patti LaBelle was walking around. It was a relaxed environment, but we were all taking pride in the fact that our president, this is 1979, was saying Black music has great value in our society. It should be studied. It should be appreciated. It should be elevated. This music is part of when you wake up in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're in the car, when you're in the dentist's office, when you're in the supermarket, you're hearing Black music. President Carter was the star of the day, especially when he got on the microphone and emphasized the significance of Black music in shaping our nation's development. The Black Music Association flourished for about a decade before internal power struggles ultimately led to its demise. Throughout the 1990s and into the 2000s, I continued the mission of celebrating Black music and Black Music Month during June with Gamble's blessings and support. I established the International Association of African American Music Foundation, a non-member advocacy organization to lift up Black music, okay? And while we did our organization, in the beginning, we traveled to Europe, Asia, Africa. I took a delegation of about 50 American artists and executives. Our first trip, we had Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Yolanda Adams, Sylvia Rohn, who's one of the highest ranking Black women in the music business, of course, Gamble and Huff. It was quite extraordinary. And we met with our counterparts, other executives, other artists, the Black British artists. We did a black tie dinner. It was amazing. I did that for 5 years while I was in school full-time at Temple University, trying to finish that degree that I dropped out of college and told my college professor mother I'd finish it at some point. My mama's here. Took me 20 years. I walked off the stage, gave her my degree. I had 3 children at that point. Gamble and I had 3 children. It was rough, tough. Anybody who's gone to school and worked and had a family, you know what I'm talking about. But in the late 1990s, while I was planning an IAM conference in Washington, D.C., I wrote President Clinton, right? I wrote President Clinton and I said, well, look at what President Carter did. And we need you to do the same thing on the South Lawn of the White House, okay, President Clinton? I know you love music. I saw you on Arsenio Hall. So I got a beautiful call back from the White House and they said, we went into the archives. We see where President Jimmy Carter had declared June Black Music Month. However, oops, he didn't sign a presidential proclamation. Wait, what? Well, I told them, we've been celebrating Black Music Month since President Jimmy Carter said it's June Black Music Month. Whoa. They said to me, why don't you go up to Capitol Hill, get some legislation, some resolution, some language, and we'll set up a meeting with you and the president in the Oval Office. Whoa. Took me about 2 years. I want y'all to know, I didn't know, I grew up in the Bronx and Harlem. I didn't know anything about lobbying. Yes, we had civics, but I didn't know anything about the process of asking congressmen and senators to adopt legislation or resolution. I knew nothing. All I knew was that I was passionate about Black music. I was passionate about us being seen and heard because I know we were being felt. So literally, I would go just knock on doors or walk in some cases, the doors would be open. And I would say, I'm here because I want your congressperson to support a resolution declaring June as Black Music Month. That's all I need. But I made a lot of friends with receptionists, the front desk people who got me to. They were like, oh, wait a minute, the congressman is here. Let me take you in. Didn't have an appointment. I just was like, okay. And I would sit, but I garnered support from Republican Senator at the time, Arlen Specter. He wrote a letter to the president on my behalf, and he also lobbied in the Senate. And also Congressman Shaka Fattah. Congressman Shaka Fattah, I met with him. I went to his office. He said, okay, Dyana, what do you need? What do you want? I said, what I want is June to be declared Black Music Month. Can you help? And he said yes. In fact, it was Shaka Fatah who introduced the resolution. And I was in my office that day. I got a call. He's about to introduce the resolution on the floor. I was like, what? This is now years of me lobbying, writing editorials in Billboard magazine, just talking about us celebrating American culture. Well, then they called me a few hours later and said the resolution passed. June is officially Black Music Month as far as American people are concerned. Yeah, it was a moment. And I was thrilled, but I knew there was so much work to get done because those are words. Just like when I talked about the Civil Rights Bill that President Johnson enacted, it became law, it became the law, but it didn't matter because we know what happened. Racism just, it seemed to like step up even more. As I mentioned to you, I'm a native of Harlem in New York, and I've lived in Philadelphia now for 50 years. I am proud to celebrate the remarkable achievements of Gamble Huff, Tom Bell, and all the extraordinary executives, musicians, and artists whose music I had the privilege of playing here, WDAS, Classics 107.9, WRMB, and of course, before that, WBLS in New York, WHUR in DC. I'm frequently asked, why is it important to celebrate and preserve Black music? Why is it important? Some people don't care. They don't care about Black music. They don't care about Black people. But our music, as I said, you're consuming it from the moment you wake up. You may not even be aware. Maybe pay a little attention, and you'll realize just how much Black culture you're consuming on a daily basis. At a time where erasure of history is taking place, I woke up this morning to a story that President Trump wanted the image of the slave. I cannot remember his name, but Gordon Peter, that's what I couldn't remember, with the whip marks on his back. Has anybody seen that picture? It's a horrible picture, but it expresses what happened to Black men and women in this country. At a time where erasure of our history is taking place, it is critical that we recognize that history is a study of past people, places, and events that have occurred amongst human beings. Studying history is paramount because it helps us to understand where we've been, what happened, where we are now, and how it's going to impact us in the future. Remember I said knowledge is power? For Black people in America whose ancestors endured the brutality of the transatlantic slave trade between the 16th and 19th centuries, European slave traders captured an estimate, this is an estimate, 10 to 12 million people, primarily from West Africa. These individuals were either sold to European slave traders or forcibly kidnapped from their tribes and sold to European slave traders from other tribal leaders. You know, I was very, I minored in African American studies at Temple University, where I serve on the board of my school, the Klein College of Media and Communication. And it broke my heart when I learned about other Africans selling African people. It wasn't just, but the majority of West African people were kidnapped. They were taken. That's how they were taken. Ooh. These individuals were either sold to traders or forcibly kidnapped, and they were transported on large cargo ships called slavers. In the bows of these ships, people were packed tightly, chained to one another, and held in unsanitary conditions. The stench was unbearable, and in some cases, men and women were sexually molested. The practice of rape stopped at a certain point because you couldn't have a pregnant woman and try to sell her. They weren't doing that quite yet. But yes, due to their captors' fear of insurrections, they were only allowed on deck for a few hours a day. Imagine there's a photo of a cargo ship, and that's the condition that Black people were brought over here, chained to one another. And also, I might add, separated from people from their tribes. They didn't want communication going on because they were fearful of insurrection. And a lot of that happened as well. I want you to know that not everybody, you know, people fought. Some people threw themselves overboard rather than continue the suffering of the indignation of what happened. However, music, they sang, they still had the drum. They were able to have the drum, which is an African instrument. And of course, they brought that with them here to these shores. However, I said 10 to 12 million, the big population of Black people in Brazil. When I went to Brazil, I went to Bahia, they took more people, Black people, there to South America, to Brazil, throughout South America, actually. You go to Colombia, you're gonna see Black Colombians, all through Peru, you're gonna see Black people. But of course, something very unique happened here because we had 400 years of slavery. It happened in other places as well, but there was something different happen here in the 4 centuries of enslaved people who were owned by despicable individuals who profited from free labor. Black people were sold, branded, beaten, raped, separated from loved ones, denied education, and subjected to oppressive laws. Despite these cruel conditions, resilient, imaginative, innovative people, Black folks, created multiple genres of music with some European influences. These genres include field hollers, spirituals, work songs, gospel, blues, ragtime, rock. Yes, I said rock. Just like country music was appropriated and claimed, Black people created rock, jazz, country, disco, techno, one of my favorites, go-go, soul, funk, house, and I did mention 50 plus years of hip hop. The #1 selling genre in the world remains hip hop, created by Black folks in America. From the diaspora, calypso, reggae, dancehall, rocksteady, mento, chutney, steel pan, soca, ska, zouk, salsa, merengue, and much more. They dropped us off in the Caribbean as well. Call and response, blue notes, syncopation, riffing are integral elements of African music that are evident in American and music throughout the diaspora. According to Dr. Joy DeGruy, a social work researcher, Black people suffer from post-traumatic slave syndrome. Post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay, you've heard of PS for, okay. Sustained systemic racism. She maintains that this condition exists as a consequence of multi-generational oppression of African individuals and their descendants that they endured for, like I said, 400 more. We must acknowledge that despite these hardships, Black people remain joyful and created a grand universal language in our music. Felt by people all over the world, and an economic entity, like I said, that generates multi-billions of dollars. Black identity via culture has also influenced fashion, dance, language, and more. Note the cultural appropriation with little or no accreditation or compensation. That's what happened with country music, and it happened with rock. That's why I told y'all, the Beatles, they will tell you, they were listening to American music, principally Black artists, the ones that I cited, and others. Ooh, your doggy. Okay, I see the dog. I strongly encourage individuals to purchase and stream the music of artists that they love, because I get questions all the time. How do we celebrate Black Music Month? How do we celebrate Black music? How do we preserve it? How do we protect it? Well, we should all take pride. If you are an American, it's your music, regardless to whether you're Black or not. It is American music. It comes from our experience of Black people. I talked about enslavement and slavery and the ill treatment, but Black people, we just flourish. We're able, you know, like we would get the pig, we would take the intestines, okay? We take the worst parts and make it into a meal. From the root, what is it? From the rooty to the tooty, right, okay? So I get questions all the time about How do we celebrate the music and preserve it? You can support, for instance, research that goes on here. There's an exhibition that we'll all go see down in the lobby that is about the preservation of our history and Black music. I love that it's talking about Lawnside, New Jersey, because my former mother-in-law, Loretta Adams, owned clubs in Lawnside. She owned the Fantasy Lounge, which is where the Kimmel Center stands now. That was owned by a Black woman, and all the artists would go over there. She was from Louisiana. She knew how to make that soul food, and everybody would go over there in between their recordings to eat their yams, collard greens, and that fried chicken, okay? We also have, like I said, we need to support the work here at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, 200 years young, this organization, okay? The Philadelphia Walk of Fame on South Broad Street. I know sometimes we just walk, we're just walking to where we gotta go. Next time you're on Broad Street, South Broad, look down. You'll see not only many of our Black artists, but our artists, all of the artists, including the Philadelphia Orchestra. I want to recognize Danielle Allen. She's the Vice President of Education at the Ensemble Arts, which is doing their part to promote Black music and culture as well, with the Philadelphia Orchestra inviting soloists like Lauren Talese and others. Just recently, I went to the Man, one of the best concerts I'd ever seen, and I've seen a lot of concerts. It was the Philadelphia Orchestra with Nas. Okay, and I consider visiting and becoming a member of NAMAM. That's the National Museum of African American Music. You can visit the website at NAMAM, NMAAM.org. This is a 56,000 square foot, technologically advanced contemporary institution that's dedicated to the preservation of our stories, our artifacts, and represents a diverse range of genres. There's subgenres is meant as well. I mentioned main genres, but there's subgenres in that. And that's in Nashville, Tennessee. Black music in Philadelphia throughout the country is a form of expression and protest, reflecting the struggles and triumphs of American people. Events like the Roots Picnic, Odunde, Welcome America's Black Music Month concert at the Dell, Beach Jazz on the Avenue, produced by Chris Brown in North Philly, celebrates the city's musical legacy and its impact on American music history. We also have organizations like Black Music City that honor and support with grants contemporary Black musicians and creatives, ensuring that they have an opportunity to continue the rich legacy of what happens here in this city. The Uptown Development Organization, Rec Philly, Ensemble Arts, again, the Clef Club, Scribe Video Center. We are the Original Music City, and I'm part of the Original Music City Task Force. The Philadelphia chapter of the Recording Academy, led by Ramon Jones. And their board, I'm a former president, that's the Grammy organization. Shout out to the work that they are doing. Shout out to Marcus John Bryant, who was the most recent president, who's doing incredible work. We have so much to be proud of in our city. You know, I had a list, John Coltrane, I mean, there's so many, Alfred Pollard, Jamaluddin Takuma, there's so many artists that come from this city. Grover Washington Jr. was from upstate New York, but he married a woman from Philly. He lived in Philadelphia. So we have people who are affiliated, like I'm affiliated, although my mama tells me that I was conceived here in Philadelphia. That counts, okay? My actual moment of arrival. Gamble and Huff have maintained one of the most enduring partnerships in the music business, over 60 years now. With 5 Grammys, induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were former chairman of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which they've also been inducted into the Dance Hall of Fame. You name a Hall of Fame, they're in it. Numerous awards and accolades, 170 gold and platinum records. Gamble and Huff have emphasized unity, progressive development, self-pride, wealth accumulation, education, and community. We must celebrate these men. They've done so much to put us on the map. The legacy that they've inherited from the Marian Andersons and the other great artists that come from our city is evident in their music. They help to shape our identities, and I am grateful to know them, to call them friends and family. Their high level of community give back, their philanthropic endeavors, their gift of a musical soundtrack to all of our lives will continue to inform and inspire millions for generations to come. Thank you. Woo. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I am open for questions. I know that, and let me tell you, I called Brianna. I was like, girl, I have gone overboard, okay? Stop me. Somebody stop me. I love our city. I love our music. I love what Gamble, Huff, and Bell and people like Lawrence Johnson, Elaine Johnson did and have done, are still doing for our city. I can't imagine being any place other than this great historic city. I'm looking forward to our 250th birthday. Right, it's coming up. I'm looking forward to that. But question time or comment, please tell me your name and speak up. And don't be shy. Okay, here we go. Brianna's got a microphone. Okay, thank you.
I'm Regina Vaughn from the Philadelphia Heritage Branch of ASALH. Carter G. Woodson was our founder of Black history, the father of Black history. I just want to thank you. It was excellent. I'm so glad to see you all and coming out in this weather. I'm particularly glad to see Adele Beverly. I'm surprised she came today.
Wow.
From Delaware County. Yes. We met, I think we might want to stop telling the years, back in 7th grade at Masterman.
Really?
Yes.
Before? Wow. Look at that. You can't trade those kind of relationships. Thank you, Miss Regina, for what you do to preserve our culture.
Downstairs.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Adele Beverly. I'm from North Philadelphia, and I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, I love music, I love history. I did go to the Rock and Roll Museum in Cleveland, got upset, first of all, because it wasn't in Philly.
They tried to come, they tried.
Remember,
The city didn't
voting and
support
we were
it.
just, we were doing a lot. But what upset me, and I mean, it's a great place, you should go. If you love music, you should go. Motown had this huge display, and Philadelphia had this little corner. And I asked the curators there, I said, well, why is Philadelphia such a small corner when we're huge? We had a lot more hits, a lot more Billboard people than Motown. And I love Motown. Motown was the earliest thing I can remember. And they said it's because they didn't contribute documents or things for the exhibit. And I don't believe that.
Well, they did, because there is Gamble's handwritten lyrics to one of the songs. I can't recall which one it is, but it is small in comparison. Same thing with the African American Museum in DC.
Yeah.
I saw I called Gamble. I said, "What is that?"
But that's just a comment. So
Yeah, understood.
Philadelphia gets overlooked, and we know we're great.
Yeah, but we have to we gotta.
No.
We got to speak up. Gentleman behind you, I think he had a comment. Yes? Oh, I thought I saw you raise your hand. No? No comment. Okay, my bad. Okay. Over here.
First, I have to shout out my girl, Justina. Hi, Justina. Just to let you all know, there are over 21 million artifacts in this building, and they are the stewards. And I give thanks to you for bringing, I'm not gonna cry up in here, but for bringing the treasure of this woman here today, because you have to meet the excellence in this building with the excellence you put on this stage. And this woman means so much to me personally. She wrote my very first resume ever in life when I was 16. And she put me on her list of of little mentees to come and allow me to learn from her. And I didn't know the magnitude of that then, but I came to testify tonight, and there was no way I wasn't going to be here to tell you and give you your flowers right now and tell you how special you are to me, how important you are to here, not Philly, not this building, this earth, okay? And how much we need to preserve our important treasures. So I'm here to say that I will be back to find you and make sure you come back to this building where you belong amongst the most important of the things we preserve, because they are important to us. And I love you dearly, and I thank you so much for the foundation you are in my life. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, thank you for that. Wow, thank you. Means a lot.
My name's Lisa Monique Jenkins Hayden. I was not going to speak, but your comment actually spurred a memory for me. I lost my mom about 3 years ago, and what I'm noticing is since losing her, I'm having all of these full circle moments. So I saw that I'm here with Asala, the Philomanco branch, and so that's what brought me out. And when I saw your picture, I remember being maybe about 16 and at your home. I think I came to your home with Jackie Johnson. At the time, she was managing Han Soul, which was an artist out of Philadelphia. I think that's the right memory, but my memory is not so great. But what I can remember is when you stood up to speak about her, what I remembered was the warmth with which you spoke to someone who was at that time a mentor. I was an early teen, I was like 15 or 16, and I was with a woman who was managing. And to manage anybody in the music industry is difficult, but definitely as a woman. But to come to another woman's home and you welcomed us, there was such a joy and a camaraderie present. And I don't know that you remember that, but I remember people say to you, you may not remember someone's name, but you remember how they treated you. And so I do want to echo this, giving you your flowers while you're here. There was a sense of legacy, of history, and I see that even years later, you still carry that mantle. And I'm very appreciative of that. Because when we look at TV today and see what's happening on like the trials and the different things that women have had to go through within the music industry, to have a safe haven of women who celebrate each other, who elevate each other. I felt that when I visited you, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing that memory, Lisa.
Time for one more. Got a question on Zoom.
Justina has a question?
I'm reading something from Zoom, and this is from Joan Pendergrass,
Oh.
who is on Zoom.
Wow, yes. Joni.
And she writes, I'm sitting here soaking in this amazing history of the Black Music Association, Kenny Gamble, Tom Bell, and Leon Huff. To hear Dyana Williams tell it is incredible. She is truly the queen of Black music history.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Joni. I hope you heard your shout out. I didn't know she was Joan Pendergrass, the widow of Teddy Pendergrass, my girlfriend who's in Florida. Yay. Hi, Joan. I'll call you. Hi.
Hi, a few years ago, I was at an event that you presented at about Sister Rosetta Tharpe
At Bright Hope
at
Baptist.
Bright
Church.
Hope, yeah. And you were talking about the African American Music Museum in Nashville, where I had recently been.
Did you go?
Yeah, right before that presentation. And I said, Reverend Joe Williams, your suit is in the African American. For those who don't know, Reverend
Dixie
Joe Williams is a
Hummingbirds.
stalwart of the gospel scene
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And there's a book coming out about him, right?
Good.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Anyway,
Dixie
you know,
Hummingbirds.
yeah. So he was part of the Dixie Hummingbirds, sort of, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about how incredibly important the gospel tradition in Philadelphia was to Philadelphia International Records,
Right.
because that was the foundation.
Exactly why I mentioned Tinley Temple. That was, just a slight reference because Gamble grew up in that area and was privy to that. But you are absolutely right. That's why I said Tinley helped to establish, he wrote hymns. So Philly became known very early in its history as a home of gospel music. The Clara Ward, the Dixie Hummingbirds, all of that went down here in Philadelphia and influenced gospel elsewhere. I mean, especially Clara Ward. She was also very close to Aretha Franklin. She was his woman for a period of time. Clara Ward dated Aretha Franklin's father, C.L. Franklin. So yes, gospel music. And as you mentioned, tell me your name again? Jack. As you well know, I mean, like I said, name a genre. We excel here in Philadelphia in it, from gospel to jazz. We're a big jazz city as well. We used to have a lot more jazz clubs. We don't have as many venues, but this was the home of the Heath brothers. Jimmy Heath was my flute teacher when I was 16. Like I said, John Coltrane, while he was born in North Carolina, he spent his summers and he lived here for about 6, 7 years. We all know in North Philly. I live in North Philly, so, but yeah, jazz. And then I talked about Gamble and Huff, R&B pop, because it was popular music, still is. You figure many of these songs that Gamble and Huff and Tom Bell wrote 50, 60 years ago, they stand up sonically and otherwise. I love when Gamble, Huff, Bell music comes on the radio. But you're right, Philadelphia, a gospel, when the Great Migration happened, I had a whole part about the Great Migration. Some people went to Detroit, some went to Chicago, some went to LA. A lot of people came to Philadelphia because we were a Quaker city and because there was a strong abolitionist movement here in Philadelphia. So I think, when we look at the roots of why did so much great music and people come out of this city, you had good white people who were not into slavery. They didn't like it. They didn't want it. Even I was watching a documentary recently about the writing of the Declaration of Independence and the struggles they went through because, as we know, Black people were excluded, so were women. So that, who were they? But there was debate about including Black people. And that got thrown out because the southern states were so strong and slavery is what built a lot of this country. So they were like, oh no, absolutely not. So we had to wait till 1964 to President Johnson saying, oh no, the Great Society. And he was building on what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did with the Great Deal. But thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Yes. Over here. Okay, and I'm getting the wrap-up signal. Okay. Do we have time for one more question? No? One more question? No? No more question. Yes? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Stephanie Joy Tisdale, and I'm an educator doing some work actually here at HSP now as well with resource building. But I just wanted to kind of speak to it, and I'm a Philadelphian as well, so all of the things that you named, I'm just learning so much from you and all of those connections. But thinking about like the family-oriented, community-oriented elements that you named in terms of having this big success, right? The platinum, multi-platinum albums, while still doing this community work and like the shifts that we've seen in the music industries, plural, since then, and any advice that you would give to like young artists or young people who are thinking about creating, but how to keep in mind the community element and the family-oriented element that, Gamble and Huff was able to elevate.
Great comment, great question. I will tell you that community was very, very important to Gamble and Huff. It was very much in the DNA of the company. They were interested in making money, of course, but Gamble to this day lives in South Philly on 15th Street. Universals, he and his wife Fatima established. That's why I felt it was important to mention. She's wife number 3, I was number 2. Anyway, bad Deanna. I forgot the question. Community, yes, community, very important. And young artists, I do artist development and media coaching for the last 30 years as part of my company's portfolio. I've worked with everyone from Justin Bieber to Jack Harlow to Dave Matthews Band, artists in all genres. But I promise you, when I work with these artists, they can't get out of a session with me where I don't say to them, what you'll give back. Because you are taking from people, you are receiving accolades, money, looks, likes, whatever. What are you giving back from the wealth that you accumulate from the public? So I'm big on holding artists responsible. Now, some people care deeper than others, some don't care at all. They just care about getting paid. But then a lot of artists that I work with, they're about, they establish foundations, they give back, they do the work. We have a great group of young artists here, Tierra Whack. I mean, there's a group of young Black artists coming up. They're very mindful. And the generation before this, the Jill Scotts, the Roots, they're all, Music Soul Child, Bilal. They all studied Gamble and Huff and Tom Bell. They are the children of. And they give back. Jill Scott has her Blues Babe Foundation. It's up on North Broad Street across from the Uptown Theater. I know a lot of artists that they write checks. Some people are good at just writing a check. Some people are good at rolling up their sleeves and doing work, giving the turkeys away or whatever. So for me, I'm constantly browbeating artists that they must give back. The community makes them who they are. So with that, I want to thank Justina. I want to thank Brianna, the staff here at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. We're going to see the exhibition downstairs. I'm very proud of it. Brianna was one of the contributors, and Faye, and it's lovely. I'm grateful to you all. Thank you, because you didn't have to come out in the rain, but you did. And to everybody online, Joan and everyone else on the Zoom, thank you again for your support of this conversation. I appreciate it. God bless.
Before